So I have finally maxed out my stocks and shares ISA allowance for 2025 to 2026 tax year. And although it's taken a couple of months, I'm here. And as you can see, here is where the majority of my cash is. This is in Lightyear. I've made a couple of videos before. Now, one thing that you do have to note is that, the current value is under £20,000. And typically that is the ISA allowance that you get across all of your ISAs per tax year. That is £20,000. Now, if I press this button over here that says flexible ISA allowance, you can also see that it says I have £300 left of my ISA allowance. And the reason why I have £300 left but have maxed out my stocks and shares ISA is because I put £300 into another broker. It was a battle in my head against Lightyear and the other broker. And ultimately, of course, as you can see, I decided to go with Lightyear instead. So this means that £300 will stay in the other broker for now. It's just £300. It's not too bad. And as of today, I have completely maxed out my stocks and shares ISA allowance. Now, I'm actually very new to the Lightyear stocks and shares ISA. I'm not new to the platform completely. When I started this channel over 2 years ago, I actually did have Lightyear, but back then their offering was a lot smaller and they didn't have a stocks and shares ISA. So in this video, I'm going to quickly go through my portfolio and what my plans are of having separate stocks and shares ISAs. As you may know from my other videos, I have a rather significant portfolio of over £100,000 with a separate broker. I just want to leave that alone and let it compound over time. And essentially, I'm going to explain why I have a separate account. Also in the video, I'm going to show you that Lightyear supports business account investing. And I'm going to show you that many different brokers don't actually offer this. And it's very nice to see that Lightyear is doing this. So as you can see, the Lightyear platform has always been pretty in terms of graphics and user interface. So as soon as you sign into Lightyear, you're presented by this. By default, it goes to my stocks and shares ISA. If I click the eye over here, it actually switches off my figures. If you like sharing your portfolio but don't want to share your actual numbers, then I guess you can switch that off and then just show percentage differences. I'm going to leave that on because I always show my portfolios. But anyway, you can see it's very nice. You have the 1 day movement. And what I really like about Lightyear is that the day's highs and lows in terms of your portfolio value are presented. I really like that. I don't see many other platforms doing that. And one thing that I can't fully show you on screen is that, the granularity of this graph. I can hold it and there are lots of vibrations that I can feel under my thumb, but you can literally go back every 5-minute interval throughout the day and see how your portfolio changed. I don't think many other brokers are doing that. It might not be that important to you. It's not that important to me, but I just thought I'd add that. Of course, you can even see your week change. And as you can see this morning, I deposited the rest of my allowance and now I've maxed out my ISA. And of course, you can see the month, year to date, 1 year, and also 5 years. Now, because I've just maxed out my ISA, I hadn't really invested any of that cash. So my return is very low. A part of me does regret not having invested, when the ISA season just came out. But you know what? It was just not meant to be for me. And having a decent amount of cash just in case the market's tripped up again is, in my opinion, sometimes a good thing. Although I wouldn't keep everything in cash for those times, personally. So let's go through my portfolio. I actually just made this investment today, so we're just going to go in and see that in a bit. So as you can see, I have £78.51 remaining in cash. The cash does earn interest here at 2.5% at the time of filming, but I have been making use of this, the Lightyear vaults. Let's just quickly go into that. Now, it's important to know that the cash is invested into money market funds, so your capital will be at risk here. But as you can see, I have £35.54 in unpaid interest. You get paid this interest monthly, but it is calculated daily. You can also see that you can move money from your vaults into your cash pretty easily, and I've been doing that, as you can see from this transaction list. Now, like I said, I only made this investment today, and this is in the iShares Core S&P 500, so let's go into that. So when we open it, we can see the day's movement, we can see the highs and the lows for today, and we can also see the exact moment that I bought these shares. 429 shares I bought today at an average price of £43.73. Now, if I scroll down, you can see currently I have 450 shares in the IUSA. So this is the iShares Core S&P 500. So as opposed to what I have been investing into recently, which is the GSPX, which is the hedged version of the S&P 500, this is the unhedged version of the S&P 500. So just a standard ETF following the index of the S&P 500. There is currency conversion happening at the back end of, iShares. Nothing we have to worry about because we're buying in pounds and pence here. So of course there's volatility throughout throughout the market as we're open. We're currently down by £2.99. But of course, it's very normal to have fluctuations throughout the day. And now this is why I really like Lightyear. You can see the week view, you can see the week's high and the week's low. And if you drag two fingers across, you can see the percentage difference. So you can see we're at a very volatile time in the market right now, a 4% up and down throughout the week, which is pretty big. Over the past month, you can see this is even more volatile. And now if I drag my finger all the way back, you can see I've bought a few shares over here, but I did sell them afterwards and I didn't have that much cash in there anyway. The whole idea of this stocks and shares ISA that is separate from my main stocks and shares ISA is so, I can act as a long-term investment and also a potentially shorter term investment that I could possibly, I'm thinking about using as a house deposit. So in that case, if it's a more short-term investment, then I will be looking to put more of my money into money market funds, so that they are more readily available instead of just investing solely into the stock market. I will do a mixture of both, and of course, if the stock market crashes, then I will keep the funds here. I'm not going to sell at a loss. We can also go back to a 1-year view. Now, compared to the GSPX that I usually invest into, the GSPX has pretty much completely recovered, but we can see compared to the highs of the year, we are still down by around 9%. Now for me, I did buy a whole lot of shares today, and the idea behind that is mostly this is an unhedged version of the S&P 500. There's a lot of currency fluctuation between the pound and the dollar, and hopefully there is still a bit of ways to go, although past performance is no indication for future growth. So if I could see a few percentage growth in my ISA per year, I would be very happy. Of course, the magic 10% will be very nice year on year, and that will really help me grow my portfolios and hopefully retire earlier. So we're back in the green on this fund, but there's really not much else to show. In this stocks and shares ISA, I will mostly be investing into just one ETF, for example, the S&P 500, and making the most out of Lightyear vaults. Now, if you would like to sign up to Lightyear and receive a $15 free US fractional share, then I've left a link in the description box down below. Just sign up with that and you should receive that $15 fractional share when you top up £100. Now, alternatively, you can press the top left button here and then go into settings and then go into promotions, and then you can press add promo code here, and under promo code just use my name JUBAIR, and then after the terms and conditions are met, you should receive your $15 US fractional share. Now remember, when you're investing, your capital is at risk. The value of your investments can go up or down, and this is by no means financial advice. Furthermore, if you sign up to Lightyear, you will be put into a draw where you can win a $100 US fractional share. I'll leave all the terms in the description box down below. Now, like I said, Lightyear also allows businesses to invest their spare cash, and here is my business investing account. My current portfolio is actually £4,959, and I haven't really made any investments yet. However, I do have to say that I deposited over £5,000, and the reason why it is below £5,000 is because in order to invest as a company, you do need your LEI registration, and for me that cost £51. So if I go into it, you can see that it includes VAT, and this is for the length of 1 year. Most of you won't be actually investing as a business, so I'm not going to go too much into detail. But if you are a limited company and you want to put your spare cash in maybe, let's say, a money market fund, or even invest it into the stock market, long term or short term, there's a lot of benefits when it comes to investing as a business. For example, any capital gains made, you only pay corporation tax on that. Of course, I'm not a tax advisor. There might be other things behind the scenes that you might have to pay. But as a business, it can be pretty tax efficient to invest your spare cash. So since putting that £5,000 in, a lot of it was in money market funds. And you can see I've earned an unpaid interest of £5.76, which should be paid to me at the end of the month. I received my LEI yesterday, and it only took about 30 minutes for me. So I can, for example, right now invest into the S&P 500 or a bunch of other ETFs. And the great thing about Lightyear is with ETFs, there is no commission. Of course, the fund manager fee applies and other fees can apply. But for example, with the IUSA, there's no extra fees that you have to pay apart from the fund manager fee, and that's really great for me, and that's why I really like Lightyear. Now, in terms of business accounts, this is the only business account that I could find that has instant executions and also sell and buy limit orders, which for me, I like to have. I like to play around with the market sometimes, and it gives me more control over buying and selling. Now, currently, the choice of ETFs, in my opinion, I do have to say it is a bit limited, but Lightyear has been adding a lot of ETFs, and they plan to add a lot more ETFs. For example, you do have the infamous VUSA here. Remember, if you are investing as a UK investor, then you should go for pounds if you want to avoid an extra foreign exchange fee. They also have the VUAG, the VWRP, the IUSA. They actually do have a lot. They have the FTSE 100 too. And for example, for these ETFs, there's no extra commission. You're obviously going to be paying your fund manager charge. For example, for the ISF, that is a 0.07% annual fee. So because this is my business account, I'm not really looking for very long-term investments again. So the majority of my money will be put into money market funds. That being said, the LEI did cost £51, so it would only make sense to invest money because you don't actually need an LEI if you want to keep your money as cash in money market funds via Lightyear vaults. So I'm going to have a think about what kind of investments I want to make. Again, they won't be very long term. Most of this cash will be needed to pay my corporation tax, in the coming year to months. But it's a nice way to invest my spare cash that I have in my limited company. So make sure to check out some of my other videos and I'll see you in the next video.